This is a production of the AJ Podcast Network.
Pushing and pulling, I want you, but you wanna leave. I hate you, I love you, you love me, yeah, you gotta be. If I'm your cage, leave. But if you stay with me, eventually we'll find happy.
Should I go left? Should I go
Welcome to Passage Home Podcast, starring the Dr. Stanley Russian. I'm AJ. I'm filling in for the Baxabillion. Bax will be with us on our next episode, but he'll be here in spirit. We have a song, Caged. Don't forget to download it on Apple iTunes. All of our episodes, new, old, and everything in between, will be on YouTube. Don't forget to like and subscribe, hit the notification bell, and you'll be notified when a new episode of Passage Home Podcast comes out. For the recent 8 episodes of Passage Home Podcast will be on Apple, Spotify, Google, Podbean, and also don't forget to ask Alexa, "Hey Alexa, please play Passage Home Podcast from iHeart Radio," and she'll play that for you. My other podcast with the Baxabillion, myself, and our newest co-host, Amory, show is called I Can Relate to That, where we talk about things we can all relate to one way or another. Those platforms are Apple, Spotify, iHeartRadio, TuneIn Radio, CastBox, Verbal, Podbean. And also you can ask Alexa, "Alexa, please play I Can Relate to That podcast from iHeartRadio," and she'll play it for you. If you need to get a hold of Passage Home Podcast, our email address is passagehomepodcast@gmail.com. If you're interested in sponsoring this podcast, send an email to passagehomepodcast@gmail.com. Without further ado, Dr. Stanley Russian, how are you, sir?
Amazing. By the grace of God, everything is amazing.
Excellent, excellent.
And out of the words of Quincy Jones, it don't come from me, it's just coming through me.
Yes, sir, absolutely.
Give thanks.
Give thanks.
Yes, sir.
So what is on the board for this evening?
Well, on the board for this evening, we have a return guest, Lady D from Philadelphia, and Bree Z. Lee, her daughter. She has her own engineer as well as I have my engineer, and we both share an engineer in UAJ. But her daughter did an amazing job of putting her online today. So I just want to start off by saying to Lady D, I got the virtual thank you card from Music. Paul Friend, thanking me for the basket last week, and I really appreciate it. But without further ado, I want to introduce Lady D. But the theme of what we're doing today, we're always, everything we talk about has a purpose, and that purpose is making people aware of people who have and are thriving in Africa, regardless what you think of what you've been told. So this episode, we're going to brush on thriving in Africa and around the world with disabilities. And so I want to bring Lady D. Are you there, Lady?
Yes, I am. And thank you, AJ and Dr. Stan, for having us.
Oh, you're very welcome.
Today.
Mm-hmm.
Could be an exciting show.
Yes, and so we're gonna get started with we're gonna be talking today about thriving with disabilities at home and abroad. And for the first topic is something that Lady D brought to my attention about the about a blind Olympian who's not surviving but thriving and still is involved in the Olympics. Lady?
Absolutely. Yes, you're speaking about Mr. Dwayne Adams from Breaking Barriers at breakingbarriers.com. He's a dear friend of mine, and he will be joining us on the show on a later date because we're going to not only talk about one type of disability, but multiple disabilities blending in with ability and thriving in business across the country and abroad.
And there's a commonality between the three of us. Well, not the three of us, but between you and you and myself. The two of us are both in wheelchairs, and we are thriving, and that has not slowed us down from the global things that we do physically, being outside of the country and being inside the country. We're doing business globally. I want you to speak on you going to the desert in your wheelchair. That was very adventurous when you spoke about that to me.
Absolutely. Well, I'd like to come back with the actual director that took me there, which was director Lamont Burrell. And so Lamont Burrell had this ingenious idea when he recorded me that he wanted to shoot the production in the Sahara. And there's multiple countries that flanks the Sahara. And I wasn't quite sure which country he wanted to embark on for the various different flavors that he wanted to express in the video and in the film production. Because, of course, we do trailers and treatments in production. So Lamont came up with the bright idea that I was to get on a plane at JFK and fly to Cairo and Morocco. And so once we did that, if you can imagine, I told him, I said, okay, you're taking me to Sahara, but you know that there are no handicap restrooms in the Sahara, right? And he laughed at me. He said, we'll work it out. And I don't know what I was thinking because it was a very interesting moment in that time and space covering all of Morocco and Cairo to capture what he got actually in the can in my wheelchair. But believe it or not, people are so gracious abroad in the diaspora that I was accommodated at every area, even more so sometimes than I am at home, because there are some historical cities that are not necessarily as handicap accessible, but they're making alterations now in their modern modifications. But there are some other states that are absolutely handicap accessible and not as challenging. Because Stan, you and I both know San Francisco is very challenging, correct?
Right, absolutely.
NorCal is very challenging. Like 1 minute you're on a straight path and you make a left turn and it's down an incline, like falling down a mountain, and then it has steps and you roll and you're like, how am I going to get down there? And you actually have to turn back. So life is like that too. And so when you're traveling abroad and you meet those challenges and you get stuck, don't be afraid to turn back and reposition yourself to go forward. Right, Stan?
Right. Right. Absolutely. Can you share with us how you, because before you were in a wheelchair, you traveled all over the world. You actually not only did fashion shows, you actually were a model.
Yes, I
Uh,
was a
uh,
model, a designer, jewelry and fashion fabricator, and shoes, um, home decorum. So basically, wherever you found some kind of ingenuity or textile, I absolutely was training under various different masters. But not just in fashion, also in cosmetology and trichology, and being a platform artist. A platform artist actually trains um, distributors, students, uh, absolutely how to utilize products and technology in order to enhance their own business distribution and rate of return, their profits that they bring into their salons. So when you
mhm.
see when in fashion, you'll go somewhere and you may see a designer on stage, and they're absolutely talking about the items or how they put it together, or what equipment or lasers cut the best fabrics. The individuals that are on the platform are the most important to the industry because they create the lust and the desire for purchase. And I
Mm.
had a romance with that. And it was wonderful because no matter where you went, um, this you could see people light up on the same desire to acquire the best silks, the best dyes, the best equipment. And that's one thing that unifies the world, believe it or not, is that we're always trying to acquire the things that'll make us be our best.
If I use the word industrial artist to what you just said, would I be close?
That would be one dimension of it. Absolutely.
Uh, right.
Absolutely.
And that's
Mm-hmm.
one thing we share in common because I am an industrial artist. I, those are people who get who make things. I get bored doing repetitious things. So if I can't create something to make something easier, it would kill me to have a job doing the same thing every day. I will always see a better way of doing that, something that in work. And so, what you also did it with a flair of art, and you know you're the type of person, one of the few people I've talked to who said, "Stan, I'm coming to LA. I want to do a show and bring some designers uh, to for fashion. But here's my criteria: they must be able to mass produce whatever they have going across the stage, in volume." And I had never thought of that. I just saw them as designers, and I knew a lot of designers, but I don't even know if you remember. One of the people I came up with was Alon. Now, Alon is a world famous artist and a designer, but he has a factory in Togo.
Yes,
So whatever.
absolutely. Toga, yes, absolutely. And the reason why he is a success is because of his ability to replicate what's in his imagination.
And so that's the reverse of our program because these are Africans who come over here and thrive here and at home, you know. And
Well, that's what the conduit does. Just like our international flight system, we can go there
mhm,
and they can come here. And that's
right,
why, like last week I said, everywhere we are, she is. And
you're right.
so
There
yes,
you go.
and so also, by mingling with ingenuity abroad, the hybrids that come from us co sharing technology, it absolutely is the platform that inspires everyone on both sides. That's why in our STEM program, we have the virtual pen pal system. So in the virtual pen pal system, our children are linked from here in the U.S. to other children abroad, in various different countries, depending on what the topic of the day is. So if we're talking about tanning or the dyeing of textiles in Morocco, the children are absolutely able to work with other children that are interested in how their techniques and trademark styles are actually shared with both continents. And because of our lifestyle now with technology, we're able to do that readily. And if you go back like 25, 30 years, that was done on the big blue marble with a notebook and envelope and postage.
Right.
So, and it took weeks for us to get responses, but now it's instantaneous, and
Right.
also you get to meet the person, and not only do you get to meet them, because of the technology now and the translators, you're able to speak to the person on the very first day, on the very first second.
Right.
The language is interpreted. Go ahead.
Right. And also they have certain programs where you can make a mark and they can make a mark and play tic-tac-toe with your ideas and everything.
Yes, yes, you can have the screen. You'll more than tic-tac-toe. These children are working on early CAD programs and SketchUp and Adobe software. So these children are way past tic-tac-toe, even in grade school, which makes me really laugh, because I feel generally off the farm, I was happy. Can you imagine? We came from an era that was happy kicking a ball around.
Right.
It just seems so preposterous, because one day in the future, when I do, should I be blessed to have grandchildren, they'll be kicking around a cyber ball. They might not even be on the field anymore. They might be in a cylinder kicking around cyber balls. Could you imagine being the cyber ball champion? And that's the kind of thing that you will find at smartstates.com. That the cyberball will definitely come from probably one of my friends in Smart States.
And part of what we're talking about the fashion shows that came out of Smart States, and when the pandemic dies down, we're going to get back into that global initiative to bring technology that will change countries to the technology age, which is amazing. And as we're talking, I wanted to share a little bit of myself, because right now we're talking about thriving with disabilities globally. And for myself, 3 years ago, I had as what they call a ischemic candida stroke, which basically means that my body was overtaken by fungus and it spread it up to my brainstem and it choked out my neurotransmitters and caused my whole left side of my body to shut down. And not to go into a horrific description, but it took me 7 months to learn how to walk again. So it was very powerful. But within this 3 years, I've experienced so much. And as I was talking to Lady D before the call, and I said, I noticed that you're still, the Most High can work better through you. And that's why I started to show off, because I recognize it don't, what we're doing that's gifted, it don't come from us. It's only coming through us. And so when we can slow down, we can see that. I've been able to do more on my back without being able to move my arm on one side for at least a year than I would have on the pace that I was. I was driving over 100 miles a day, going back and forth, and when I got infected by the mold, working around mold, well, that was my job. And so it overtook me and put me in a disability state. I've been able to do a lot more on a spiritual level. I have people that call me from all over the world, and they can't wait for me to get over there working on programs. So either you don't want to be chasing things, you want to be attracting things. And when you learn how to attract, you won't waste your time chasing, because if you're chasing something, it's running away from you. I just want to put my part in to what Lady D and I share through our disabilities, but it has not slowed us down from doing global magic that comes through us.
On my side, that was a total accident. I had no
Right.
intention of doing as many
Right.
global things as I actually am. That was just a surprise. They seemed to pass me around, and they're like, "Go talk to this person. We need you over here. We need you over there." But it wasn't my intention at all, because when I first had my accident, I was struck in my vehicle. I was heading to a set. At the time, I was working for a magazine called Ambiance Magazine and a casting agency called Sapphire Casting. So we were shooting a show actually called Love Philadelphia Style. And we only had about maybe an hour to finish up, to wrap up for our wrap party. And I was at a light, and I didn't have any, I wasn't anxious or rushing. So a tractor trailer came up behind me, and its lane could only go straight or make a left. And it made a right-hand turn over my vehicle, and I was crushed under that vehicle while I was still in it. I was crushed alive by that tractor trailer. And the wheels ground into the driver's side door, and I was thrown with my lap belt, and I was in the center of the console, and literally my head was touching my knees for quite some time. I lost consciousness, and the brilliant fire department cut me out of the vehicle and put me on a board and whisked me away to the hospital. And I had what is called paraplegia incomplete, C5, 6, 7. And I was quaddy or quadriplegic for quite some time. And all I could do was move my head from the left to the right. And so on that journey back, I found out a lot of things. I found out that I can't get up in the middle of the night and go get a glass of water, that there is no 24-hour convenience store or pharmacy for anything for disability. Our wheelchair happens to be our legs. So if you can imagine that you want to do something, and all of a sudden you wake up and in the morning your legs are missing and you can't find them anywhere. That happens to us when you have children, because the children will take your wheelchair and you don't know where your legs are. So if you want to go to the bathroom or to the kitchen, you're like, wait a minute. So how are you going to get from point A to point B? And a lot of people don't know that about us. So
just to interject, how long I know Stanley for a number, at least 6-7 months at this point. Stanley, I did not know you were in a wheelchair. And Lady D, I have no idea you're in a wheelchair either. So, it's amazing on how, different perspective on how we take everything for granted. Like myself, I could just get up and walk across the house. The closest thing that I could possibly, I'm not, saying that being in a wheelchair is much different than I had really bad eyesight. So like in the middle of the night, like you were just saying, that if you need to get up, you need to, if your wheelchair's not there, you're stuck. Somebody like me, I need my glasses in the middle of the night. So if I knock my glasses on the floor and I can't find it, forget about it. It's like the end of the world for me. But being
Oh, AJ, we've seen this before. So you had a Velma moment from Scooby-Doo.
exactly.
You couldn't find your glasses and you were like, oh my God, I can't see, Scooby. Yeah.
Zoink, Scoop, zoink. Yes. Yeah. I mean, it's definitely not, if anything I can relate to in that sense, I mean, absolutely. But, I mean, even when I was a little kid, I had a very hard time walking. I had arthritis in my legs. And I would have been in a wheelchair. I would have been in my wheelchair to being an adult, but thank goodness for the great medical care I got in the late 70s, early 80s, that I got overcome my disability at that time. But yeah, if I did not have the right medical care, I would be in a wheelchair myself to this very moment. So something to...
Right. Well, I just want to add that this is beautiful because that's the whole purpose of our show, to show people how we thrive even having the disabilities, and the fact that you didn't even know. And as we're talking about around the world and going back around the world and getting into the diasporas over there, that you didn't even realize that we had disabilities, shows the point of the whole show, that everybody else they don't have no excuse. We're not making no excuses, but they don't have
that's
any.
True. The only fences you have out there, everybody, are the ones you build for yourself.
Absolutely.
Because everyone can get around the fences. Just don't build ones for yourself. Don't listen to anyone else telling you, oh, there's a fence there. Because believe me when I tell you, there is not a fence there. I've rolled through a lot of them.
Well, absolutely.
Absolutely.
And then ask yourself this. I have a friend that many of you may know. His name is Ambassador Caprizio Scats. And Caprizio, one time he said, Lady Deedra, you want a new chair? I'll buy you whatever chair you want. Let's go to the wheelchair store and get you the most elegant wheelchair right now. It's my gift to you. And we happened to be in a very prestigious mall in Huntsville because we were there for racing season for NASCAR. And so we went in this mall and he said, Lady Deedra, where is the wheelchair store? And I said, oh, Ambassador, it's right there next to Cinnabon. And so he was on that menu where we find wherever the stores are in the middle of the mall. And I said, yes. And he says, it's not here on the board. I said, that's okay. I know it's there, right next to Cinnabon. So we go through the mall next to the food court, and we're going past Victoria's Secrets, and we're going past Bath and Body Works, and we're going past Forever 21, and we get to the food court, and there's Cinnabon. And he goes up to Cinnabon and says, what happened to the wheelchair store? Did they move it to another place in the mall? And he comes back to me and said, Lady Deedra, they said there was never any wheelchair store. And he said, so where are we going to go to get the wheelchair? And I said, you don't know? So how do you think anyone else like me knows?
Mm-hmm.
And that is what I set out to change. I want accessibility so that if your mother or your father or your grandmother or your children can't get up because they've lost the wheel on the wheelchair has been broken or something has been damaged. I've been in flights and the wheelchair didn't come off the flight. And these things happen to us, but there's no remedy. It takes us weeks to get another one. And one time I took a flight for my charity and I got off the plane and my Bugatti of a wheelchair, and it is a Bugatti, isn't it, Stan?
Yes.
So I went to go to our charitable event from the tarmac. And so when they brought out my chair, it was crushed. And if anybody has flown from Miami to Key West, we reduced the size of the plane. There's a long tarmac from the airport where you have to roll all the way back to our airport station. It's not like our large, huge Miami International Airport. And so literally the captain and the stewardess and everyone was basically carrying me across the tarmac because the airline had crushed my chair. There was nowhere on the island that could accommodate me with a temporary chair. So I had to do the whole charitable event in an office chair. If you can imagine. And my story, I had a lot of help because of me being in a crowd of royals. I had tons of royal guests coming from around the world to convene with us in Key West. I had a lot of other national policymakers coming down to help us. And the name of my charity is Child Life Society. And we help to build houses for children and their families stricken with breathing ailments and cystic fibrosis. And oddly enough, now in the pandemic, my whole nation is stricken with breathing ailments.
Right.
So when you think of nutrition and the things that we've done, Stan, as far as physically with breathing, that's one of the things that the doctors absolutely address when we're in the hospital. We're given a little mechanism that we have to blow into in order to strengthen our diaphragm and our breath in order to breathe, in order to live. And right now, the whole world is struggling to breathe.
Yep. And I look at that. When it's noticeable to me because I do the same thing you just said. I look around and I say, I'm not able to move. I'm not able to go anywhere. But guess what? The whole world has been put on hold. There are a lot of people who haven't been to the beach, haven't been out the house, and they're just waiting to get out and travel and do things. But so I haven't really lost any time because everybody else is held in suspense with me. And it's been a minute that they've been in this situation. We're getting close to the end of the show, and I wanted to ask you about a technology called smart clothing. But before we talk about that, I want to tell my audience about we're still thriving. We did speak about the handicaps out there, but that hasn't stopped us, and it sure shouldn't stop you from thriving and getting places. And because we're just talking about life, and we can relate with the challenges that we've had to all the challenges you'll have, but that's no excuse not to enjoy what's out there and what you're able to do. And if we were able to do it in our condition, you can do even better in yours. And so on that, I want to what's the upcoming technology for clothing and smart technology?
Smartstates.com. Everybody, I want you to go visit smartstates.com. That's where we're going to be launching our national platform for STEM for your children on smartstates.com. And the leaders of fabric now have to just more than have to be like you today. It's going to have to wear more than one hat in order to get the job done. Other than keep you warm or keep you cool or cover your body, it's going to have to tell you where your children are. It's going to have to adapt to whatever you're doing at that in particular moment.
What about health and safety? You mentioned safety. What about health?
with health and safety, if you can imagine all the teledoc visits that we've had this year, teledoc has been introduced because of the pandemic on a multiple platform. So all of you out there, someone in your household has had a teledoc visit during the pandemic, or you know of a friend that had a teledoc visit. Imagine that your clothing interacts with your teledoc visit. That's what we're talking about in the future. Imagine that your medications are delivered by drones, because everyone got used to people coming to your door. But imagine your vital medications that you needed because our pharmacies were closed. Imagine we have troops of drone flyers, and all they do all day is route the packages to you to make your life easier, because we know that the pandemic has made us weaker. You couldn't drive. You couldn't go out. And then you couldn't ask someone in your household to go out. So you have to have something come to you. And so, oddly enough, clothing and different products and the pharmacy, they used to deliver during from the 20s to, like, I think it was the early 60s. Am I wrong, Stan?
No.
You could buy an evening gown or anything else and have it sent to your home.
Right.
And they didn't have a computer to do it. They just did it by telephone.
Right.
Which is totally amazing. So what we're doing right now in being effective with distribution, door delivery, that used to happen very efficiently in the early phases of our country industrially.
You know what's ironic? I don't know which show it was, but there was a virus in a movie where everybody had caught this virus, and in the end, when they found it was like a certain amount of time where everybody was gonna die, and they sent the antidote out and with drones, just like you were saying.
Absolutely. And our friends at Tesla, they absolutely have they have the drop on that. They definitely do.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So wind this up. We hit all of our marks for this show. On our next show, you said the last time that you're going to be introducing some royals, which is so apropos.
Thank you, Dr. Stanley. We'll look forward to that conversation on Passage Home Podcast next time. I'm AJ. I'm filling in for the Baxabillion. He'll return to us next week. Thank you, Lady D, for coming on to our show. You definitely were an eye-opener, at least to me you were. I appreciate it. Thank you. Make sure you like and subscribe to our show. We're on YouTube. We'll have all of our episodes, including the archive ones. And for the most recent 8 episodes, those episodes are located on Apple, Spotify, Podbean, CastBox, Google Podcasts. So go ahead and give a like and subscribe to those as well. Don't forget to ask Alexa, please play Passage Home Podcast from iHeart and she'll play it for you. Until next time, be safe, and we'll talk to you soon. Good night.
But if you stay with me, eventually we'll find happy.
We got carried away, getting married in May. I don't know who you are, I just know where you stay. Only took me a day, gave a cookie away.
This is a production of the AJ Podcast Network.